All right, we're here at a listing that I just sold and are trying to sell, and we need to do a hydrostatic test. So I've got Pete and Van here from Hedrick Service Now, and they're going to be doing a hydrostatic test. So the first thing they had to do was find the clean out. That's not always easy to do. Sometimes it's buried in bushes or trees or whatever, but thankfully this one was right up beside the house, and not every house has a clean out. So Pete, what happens when they don't have a clean out?
When you don't have a clean out, then we have to locate the sewer line, which usually entails having to run a sewer camera either from a vent stack on the roof or an accessible clean out on the wall, whether it be inside or outside the house. It also depends on, when the house was built, because not all the times, like you said, do you have clean outs that always accessible. But we always find a way, and when we do find it, where it exits, we use locating equipment, and it's pretty spot on.
Okay, so this one was easy today. We got lucky today.
We saved the whole step.
Yeah, we certainly did. But so if you don't find a clean out, you can still do a hydrostatic test. Well, you can still do a test.
You can do a water test.
It would have to be a camera, right?
Camera inspection, visual inspection.
Right, which a camera's not as
It's not as accurate.
right as doing the hydrostatic testing. Right. So right now you're running what down the line?
So
it's like a balloon.
That's what I tell them. Okay, so you take this balloon and you run it down the line, and then you add water.
Yeah, what we're doing is we want to make a good seal.
Yes.
And we don't want any water coming out.
Okay.
So we run a camera behind it to make sure that we do get that good seal.
So we run both this and a camera.
Right.
And make sure that it's at a point. So then when you add the water, if it holds, then you know at a minimum there's no leak there.
Right.
So now you deflate that and you move it a little further, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we just keep running this ball down the line until it doesn't hold water, and then you know at a minimum there's at least a leak there or wherever you found it.
Right.
Okay, cool. Well, let's see what happens here. So, Pete, I'm curious, has there ever been damage done from running this test? Because that's everyone's big fear, and the way our addendum reads, it's like, who's going to pay for the damage? But the reality is there shouldn't be any damage.
There shouldn't be any damage, because most of the sewer systems that we're going to run into are either cast iron or PVC. And if you ever take a look at the inside of the pipe, it's a pretty thick wall. And like what you saw earlier, the test ball is made out of rubber.
Yeah.
It's just a rubber balloon. So this rubber balloon, when it's filled up with air, it shouldn't be able to break.
Right, it's not going to break through a pipe, a perfectly good pipe.
It's not going to break through a perfectly good pipe. So if there's an issue, then that means that pipe was already in poor condition for a rubber ball to be able to affect it at all, if it does.
So the problem, as I see it, is our pipes are old.
Right.
I mean, this home was built, I think, in '66. So the pipes have been there a really long time, and the ground moves because our soil is very expansive here.
Yes.
So our ground's moving, therefore the pipe's moving.
Correct.
And those pipes aren't there for the rest of forever and ever. They corrode, right?
They do.
They just. So does PVC have a longer life?
PVC has a longer life because it's not corrosive.
Got it. So,
but
go ahead.
Like you said, we do have, expansion a lot of times when we have a drought and then we get all this rain.
Yes.
And you're gonna notice your foundation moving around a little bit.
Right.
When you have PVC pipes, they're not. If it's close to an exterior wall and you have to end up having, foundation work done.
Right.
And they lift a considerable amount, especially if it's close to the plumbing, there's a chance they can break it.
Well, they should never, ever do foundation work that they don't do a hydrostatic test afterward, ever. Because you moved a solid piece of cement and everything else stayed where it was. So things that were connected become disconnected.
Exactly.
So yeah, foundation work is a given that's got to get done after foundation work. But even just our normal day-to-day life, our ground moves. And between, like you said, we go into a drought, and then we've been in this rainy season to where we had 40 days and nights of rain.
Right.
And so the ground swells up, and it's just, yeah, it's hard on our pipes.
Yep.
So, okay, well, let's see what happens with this test. Okay, so now you put the camera down in there with the ball for the water, right? Cool, so the camera can withstand water, I guess, huh? Well, that's cool. All right, so you blew up the balloon there, and now what, he's going in to fill up the tub? Is that what's going to happen next? All right, let's go see what he's doing in here. All right, so do we fill up all the tubs with water or just one?
No, just one.
Just one? Okay, usually the master?
Yes, I think the first. It really doesn't matter, but usually I like to go the furthest one from the clean out. So,
Okay,
So I know it's filling up and testing everything.
gotcha. All right, so now we're going to fill the tub up with water. All right.
And I usually like to just do cold water because it'll fog up the camera. So
Oh, that's a good point. So cold water. I'll tell you what, I'm going to move that towel out of your way. Yes. All right, well, we'll see what happens next.
we can flush and forward, make the process go a little faster.
Okay.
It doesn't hurt to have a conversation.
All right, so we've got water running in all of the bathroom here. And then if there is any kind of break, what will happen? What will we see happen here?
Well, it'll just keep draining. It won't ever. I mean, it might fill up, but it'll just drop. But if there's no leaks, it'll
Keep
eventually
running
fill.
like.
Yeah, if there's no leaks, it'll just fill up and it'll stay. The water won't drain because we got it plugged
Because
up.
you've got it plugged up. Okay, that makes sense. So the water is now running through that sewer line, but if once it hits the ball that you put in there, it doesn't have anywhere else to go, so now it just starts filling up.
Correct.
Almost like you put the drain in.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, so he's filling up the tub and the sinks, or not filling them up, but running water. And so what do you hope to see out here? Or will anything happen out here? It's all going to happen inside now?
So we'd like to put the camera to make sure that we get a good seal.
Mm-hmm.
Also, especially when we have cast iron.
And you can look on this video, which is kind of cool that you get to sit and watch the video and see what's happening. So,
Like right here,
uh-huh.
you can see like the pipe's kind of like forming a crack once you get a better look at it.
Yep.
So it's not smooth like it once was.
Yes.
So we're getting a little bit of a trickle there.
Yeah.
So if we can't get some smoother looking pipe to get a better seal,
Yes.
then that means that it's probably already starting to deteriorate basically.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so you deflated the ball and now you're going to run it further down the line to see if there's anything further down, correct?
Right.
You saw that small crack and some of the water was coming around the seal before, so I guess just need to see if that's happening further down the line, right? Okay. Okay, so the pipe that you're working on right now is the pipe that goes under the house, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then there's a second clean out, I guess you call it, or a second area there. I see the second circle on the ground, and that one goes out to the street.
Right.
Okay, so after you look under the house, if everything's clean there, you're now going to look towards the street, right?
Right.
With the same kind of test?
Usually when you have a break in the street, it's pretty obvious.
Because you'll see it in the camera and in the...
Yeah, usually back out that way. When you have a break, you see roots, and there's like stoppages reoccur.
Okay, got it.
So, yeah.
All right. Okay, so we're going to put more air in that ball again, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the ball got moved down the pipe, and you're going to pump up that ball, okay? You're going to go fill the, you're going to run the bathtub in the sink again, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so Van, when you were in there and you had the tub running, it started holding water? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, it was draining.
It was still draining? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we're going to go back and run the camera now and see
It's like
what that looks like.
we ran water to a point to where it sounds like it wants to come up, but it's still draining.
Okay.
So
So definitely a leak somewhere.
There's a leak somewhere. We just don't, we haven't gotten down this far enough to see the leak. Okay. All right. Well, we'll continue on and run the ball. So you're going to deflate the ball again and then run it a little further. Is that what'll happen next?
well, we're gonna check the ball. And see what that looks like
With the camera?
with the camera.
Okay. All right. All right. Stay tuned. So right now you're just running the camera through.
Yep.
And so now what you're saying is if you were to dig that up, you'd find the only thing holding it together was the dirt.
Yeah, a lot of time we run into that.
Yeah, just collapses completely.
Mm-hmm.
If I were a 50-year-old pipe, I'd probably collapse too. So are you going further into the pipe or are you pulling it out?
Right now I'm pulling it out, but
Okay.
we were much further in.
Yeah, you were way farther in, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And like I said, it doesn't get much better as we go further in.
Yeah, no, I could see the cracks in there. So would your gauge spin if there was water moving?
So now my gauge is gonna, right now, we turn the water on,
Mm-hmm.
and it's reading how much pressure is coming in from the city.
Okay.
And in this case, it's about 60 psi.
Okay.
So that's the incoming pressure for the water. And what we do then is we go throughout the house and make sure there's not any leaky faucets anywhere
Okay.
or leaky commodes, because that'll show up as a leak.
Right,
So
when
if
in
we can-
fact it's not leaking, it's just
Exactly.
running. Yes, okay.
So we want to cancel that out before we do the test, so that when we do shut the water off back at the city street, if you have a leak, right now it's holding at 60.
Yes.
If you have a leak, it'll drop to 0
Okay.
within 30 minutes. No, not 30 minutes. 30 seconds.
Okay. So right now we're not seeing a leak from any of the appliances or the faucets or any of that stuff or toilet.
Right.
So now we just need to make sure that there's not any leaks in the line itself.
Right.
Okay. So now what we're doing.
So we're testing the water. We have it at pressure 60 psi is holding on the gauge,
Okay, so we know that that's there. Okay.
and that needle hasn't moved.
All right.
Normally-
So then he's turning the water off to the street. Is that what's happening?
Right.
Okay. Oops. All right. So,
And it usually, very common, as soon as you turn it off, it drops almost instantly. Just to make sure, because we do run in some cases where it's a very tiny leak. And then we check it again in 15 minutes. If it hasn't dropped, then we're pretty much 100% confident that it's good to go and there's no leaks.
Okay. So he shut the water off out there,
Right.
and then, but first you put the gauge on there to let it stop at 60.
Mm-hmm.
And now, if it doesn't drop to 0,
Right.
then we're good to go.
We're good to go, and so far it's looking good.
Okay. So in the 15 minutes we check it again, and it holds. We're good.
Yep.
All right, so we know at a minimum right now the fresh water line's looking fine. We just don't know about the sewer line, how far that goes. Because that
Sure.
takes a more extensive test.
Yes.
Okay, a far more extensive test to know exactly. We know at a minimum there's a leak somewhere.
Right. So the purpose of the sewer water test, or also known is to find out, do I have a leak or not? It's 50% chance,
Yeah.
And then once we confirm yay or nay, then, like you said, extensive testing, then we move on to the leak locate phase.
Okay, to find out exactly where it's leaking, and then how much further past that.
And then after the leak locate, once we know what's going on and how everything runs in the house,
Yes.
then we put our heads together and see what the best, most efficient way to save you money at the same time.
Yes.
Because these jobs they're always expensive.
Right.
It's very laborious.
So if plumbing's on an outside wall, the chances are you can go from outside in. You can tunnel from out in rather than like jackhammering up a house.
Yes, preferably.
Yes. So that's the big catch is the plumbing on the outside walls.
And it can also be rerouted if the depth of the sewer exiting is if it's low enough, then we can actually reroute and not have to tunnel as much.
Okay, so it saves a little bit of money that way too, because once you start jackhammering, now we've got floors to fix and cement to fill in, and yeah, that's a mess.
So yeah, it's the test, the leak locate, and then the actual repair. Is that order?
Okay, so there's a more stringent test. This one just identifies the fact that, well, we have an airplane going over, so that's always helpful. This one just identifies that, yes, we know at a minimum we've got a leak somewhere.
Right.
And so the next step is to do a much more extensive, longer test to see exactly where to be pinpointing it. Wow, okay.
Yep.
This is it's a lot of work, isn't it? Just to get to the leak, we hadn't even fixed it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, got a little ways to go. All right, cool.
Alrighty.
So let's see, our gauge is still holding.
That's perfect.
So far so good on the fresh water. That's good news.